So when you say segment, do you mean let's focus some optimization campaigns specifically on a subset of users, and then we'll see, within that kind of bucket how people behave, and/or the other sort of definition might be we ran this campaign or we're running this campaign, and as we're going, perhaps it's attracting a broad audience. In other words, that everyone is getting put into this test, but then we can slice and dice the results. So.
Yeah, when we were using Google Optimizer, for example, that was really the challenge that I had. Is I had a single form that catered to everybody and was trying to figure out how to optimize that form for the masses. And that's where I really got into some challenges because, again, I struggled to understand why, certain people or certain segments would fall off throughout the funnel. And so, because I couldn't capture all of the data points that people were entering, which was frustrating because people were clearly entering the data, I just wasn't able then to look at my tests sort of as a cross-section of users after the fact. So yeah, that was definitely a challenge that we were able to. Once we started working with SiteSpect, that was actually the first big learning, was the fact that there was no multivariate test we could run or one perfect landing page that we could, for everyone. And so when we started to actually look at the sources of traffic coming in the segments, for example, an Army veteran versus active duty Army, how the messaging was slightly different for those two groups. We could actually start to siphon those people off as they came in, maximize the conversion rate, and then recommend a new landing page to be created for that group. And that was a really big outcome for us because that was actually, or one of the challenges is always, okay, great, I've got these great recommendations. What do I do with it? How do I get that into production? And there was enough wins there quickly enough that became a very high priority of for the company to create a multiple landing page tool where a marketer could go in and deploy the results as soon as there was a statistically significant results, and then be able to push out those landing page links to the marketing team. So it just became a very rapid closed loop of deploying landing pages that were much more, they were optimized, as well as they were segmented based on what we had learned the most important areas for our audience was.
That's great.
And there were some surprising things in there that we didn't necessarily think that we thought it would be Army active sometimes, and it turned out to be specific type of messaging worked across all active duty. So it was also becoming more efficient.
So I'm just curious if some of what you guys have learned through the web optimization and the segmentation, has that carried over into perhaps informing other marketing efforts that you do that are not specifically like in your domain on the web?
Absolutely. It really has sort of redefined how I work with the marketing team, actually, to be sort of a cross-channel campaign manager and look at how the different channels play in. So the same results that we found in terms of messaging, segmentation, and personas now feed into our email strategy as well. And also our PPC messaging strategy. And then we've actually created a whole new strategy for some of our affiliate partners based on this, because it's just as we've honed in on what's working, and we've been able to do more of it, which is always what you want to be as efficient as possible.
Yeah. You've been around the block a bunch of times with testing. I'm interested in what you think as far as military.com's perspective, distinguishes SiteSpect and some of the capabilities that you're taking advantage of in the marketplace.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one that we hit on that is a big deal is the ability to test mobile. Just because for our site, the growth we've seen in mobile and really a shift in mobile, especially with our email users, and being able to really monetize that traffic in a best practice kind of way has been exciting and something that I haven't seen many people doing quite yet. So that piece of it's great. The other thing that's been just really valuable is just the time to deploy the tests, being able to have a concept and then actually deploy that out without having to redeploy an application has been really valuable, because then we just spend the time and effort on design and actually optimizing the page versus email with ops team to try to get a project through. So that's been very, very useful for us.
Good. Okay. So just making the process, that cycle, more efficient.
Exactly.
Really.
And having them be able to focus on actually putting those changes into production has been really valuable, because they appreciate the fact that once we're pushing the changes out, they're tested, they're going to work, and they're not going to have to be reverted, because that was always really frustrating, and they're looking to us as the marketing people to be, what should be on the page, and we're, we don't know, let's try a couple of different variations. And
it's like, make these changes. No, undo those changes.
Exactly. And so where this is seamless to them, by the time the changes come out, they're just ready to go, and we know that they'll just continue to perform as they've performed in the test. Or, if we learn something from it, great, we document that, and then we move on to the next thing. But it doesn't take those additional cycles, which is really nice.
Okay, good. Okay, so last question. Maybe you can convey, for the benefit of our viewers, a couple of anecdotes about some of the tests that you've run, what the results were, and really, just kind of any advice that you would pass along.
Sure. I guess a couple of things I've really learned is to learn the process of the creative team. The creative process is a very fascinating one, and learning how you can interpret the data into making tests better has been something I've really has been a big takeaway in terms of just spending a lot more time with the creative team and providing recommendations based on the data and working together as a team. As far as test-specific stuff that I've seen and learned is really just about staying broad, not trying to do too many changes at once, and looking at the users as a group of people, or as personas, versus well-defined segments based on some segmentation strategy that so we had a segmentation strategy in place that once we tested it, we realized that was too narrow. We weren't getting an ROI there with going too narrow, but we could take a step back and then actually do some broader tests that focused on messaging and continuity of creative across channels. And that's when we really started to see the ROI. So that was, I at first I thought, if we can segment everything down to its finest slice, micro-segment, and by the time you actually get your creative and get everything up, and there's just some, for us there was some lower hanging fruit that was a little easier to get to.
Yeah, good. All right, awesome advice. So that pretty much wraps it up. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this video. Breanna Wigle from military.com. I'm Eric Hansen from SiteSpect, and thanks for watching.